I want to jump right into a question that both of you obviously care about. Is that you both, your families come from Pakistan, and Pakistan right now is a third of it is underwater. Sorry to get so serious quickly, but I know you both want to talk about this. I haven't talked about it at all. The most historic flooding the country has ever seen. And obviously, I want to ask you both about it, and if you have family there and what you think about it. But I obviously want to ask you about the media coverage of it. Nayyera, you first. How much are you thinking about it? Do you know folks there, and what do you think about the media coverage of it?
So it's not just where my parents grew up and where my family lives. I have extended family there. It is also the fifth largest country in the world, a population the size of the United States. It has the largest glaciers outside of the Arctic, and those glaciers melting, climate change, all of that happening at the same time as we have seen Pakistan hit on the other end of the extreme, the wet bulb temperature, which is a temperature that is so hot that the body cannot sweat enough to cool itself off. So you have these extremes of climate change happening in this massive country where our families just happen to come from. And it's barely a blip on American news, right? Because we are deep in political season, arguing about whether or not treason is actually happening as we watch it happen in front of us. And, you know, BBC and some other international networks are covering it. But for those who would like to help, a third of the country is underwater. I recommend the ED Foundation. They are based in the south of Pakistan. They do a lot of just local direct rescue and relief. They're not about let's rebuild an economy according to X, Y, and Z metrics, which is a lot of what the international organizations do. They're like, how do we get people fed? How do we rescue people from danger? And so it's the most direct way to help. It's also inexpensive right now. The US to dollar to Pakistani rupee exchange rate is 1 to 200. Right. So like what you can do with $5 is immense right now. Like your one latte can literally save a life in Pakistan. So please help ED Foundation. Thank you for allowing me this moment. And I will kick it back to Wajahat for his perspective.
Well, I think Waj wants to plug his Venmo. Is that right, Waj?
Yeah. I'm personally going to go to Pakistan and save people. But first, I'm going to get paid and buy all the lattes. You know, what Nayyera said is the point I want to drive home to the listeners, and especially some folks are like, listen, man, I'm overwhelmed. There's multiple crises. Why should I care about these darkies in Pakistan, right? Like, you know, what do I care? And to connect the dots, in addition to what Nayyera is saying is like, this is a country of over 200 million people where a third of the population, 33 million people are displaced, and a third of that country is flooded right now. And even my family in Karachi right now, which isn't as badly affected, they're like, due to the poor infrastructure, due to the corruption, you know, we have to figure out how to like just get rid of all this water. Like, and just imagine like just being flooded. What happens to a society? What happens to a country? The reason why you should care is Pakistan is only responsible for about 2% of the world's output when it comes to climate change, right? The Horn of Africa, same, like maybe 1 to 2%. And yet the victims of climate change are countries like Pakistan, the Horn of Africa, the shithole countries, right? The victims of the United States and China in particular being irresponsible with their greenhouse gas emissions is everyone. If you look at Western Europe in the summer, Western Europe compared to United States and China comparatively did its job. It was a good faith actor. Like it's been on this. And yet that did not stop climate change and the bad wind that Herschel Walker talks about. He actually you talked about the bad. I'm not even making this up. Yeah. From affecting the infrastructure in Spain and in Europe, where you literally saw like friggin' Spain on fire. You saw like the terminal melt, right? Because Europe is not like has not been created for this type of weather. The infrastructure is not meant for this type of climate change. Right, as Nayyera is doing, some of the hottest temperatures on Earth that have been recorded have so far been recorded in certain regions of Pakistan, where it's 125 to 135 degrees. The human body has not evolved to adapt to this weather. So people are dying. They're like, what do you want us to do, man? We don't have air conditioning. We're dying. So a lot of people are like, I don't care. Well, it's like fascism. Climate change like fascism. If you ignore it, it creeps up on you real quick. And if you say, oh, I shouldn't care about what's happening to my neighbor, you realize, oh, that's now happening next door. And if you allow yourself to be ignorant about it, this affects you and is affecting Americans right now as we speak in Mississippi, in California, the hurricanes. We thought we had until 2070 or 2060 to stave off climate change. Yeah. Huge report came out right now that this glacier in Antarctica is barely hanging on by its fingernails. This came out yesterday, that this glacier that everyone's like worried about, that we thought we had 30, 40 years to save it, it's barely hanging on by its fingernails. So once that glacier goes, what's going to happen? These coastal cities in America are going to go underwater. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the refugees and immigrants won't be brown and black people. They're going to be a bunch of white folks in California and DC and Miami and in New York.
Alaska, there's a reason why the Democrat won, saying that she was pro-fish, because salmon, the industry is disappearing in Alaska because the waters are too hot. Like, this is going to be a very American refugee problem. And so if you help elsewhere, you also learn the lessons and how to solve the problems here at home.